While Ysabel was writhing in agony, her spine curving to a degree that terrified medical professionals, Kody Brown stood firm in his refusal, coldly suggesting that there was no need for surgery and even daring to suggest she travel across the country alone during a pandemic. To the cameras, it looked like a father paralyzed by fear of COVID, but behind the scenes, reports and deep-dive theories suggest a much darker power struggle was at play. There was a voice in the shadows, a secret weapon that Christine had in her back pocket, who was whispering, "Don't listen to Dad, listen to science." That person was Logan Brown. We have uncovered compelling theories that suggest Logan's medical background didn't just intimidate Kody, it completely dismantled his unscientific stubbornness. How did the eldest son secretly give Christine the courage to defy the patriarch and save her daughter's life? Today, we are exposing the untold medical war that tore this family apart. Before we dive into these exclusive theories and the shocking details of the Brown family's medical clash, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are digging deeper than the cameras ever did, bringing you the analysis and insider speculation that TLC refuses to air. So turn on those notifications, because you do not want to miss what we have uncovered about the real reason Kody stayed home. To understand the magnitude of what Logan Brown allegedly did, we first have to understand the absolute depth of the medical gaslighting that was happening in Flagstaff. For years, we watched Ysabel suffer. This wasn't a minor ache. This was a scoliosis curve that was progressively crushing her internal organs, affecting her height, her confidence, and her daily quality of life. And for years, we watched Kody Brown act as the gatekeeper to her relief. The narrative Kody pushed on the show was one of caution, but if you look closer at the timeline and the insider whispers, it looks a lot more like control. Kody has always presented himself as the ultimate authority in the Brown household, not just on spiritual matters, but on everything from real estate to health. We have seen this pattern before, a distrust of established science in favor of alternative methods that he can control. When it came to Ysabel, the wait-and-see approach wasn't just negligence. It was a calculated move to keep the family reliant on him. He pushed for exercises, for alternative therapies, for anything that didn't involve a surgeon cutting into his daughter. Why? Because surgery represents the one thing a narcissist hates most, admitting that he cannot fix the problem himself. Handing Ysabel over to a top-tier surgeon meant admitting that Kody's years of advice were wrong. But here is where the story shifts from what we saw on TV to what likely happened behind closed doors. Insider theories suggest that the breaking point didn't come from Christine suddenly waking up one morning with confidence. It came from an external injection of logic. Enter Logan Brown. Unlike Kody, who operates on gut feelings and emotional manipulation, Logan is a man of science. With a background in kinesiology and exercise science, Logan isn't just guessing about how the human body works. He has studied it. He understands the mechanics of the spine, the devastating long-term effects of an untreated curve, and the limitations of doing exercises to fix a structural deformity. The theory we are exploring today is that as Ysabel's condition worsened, a secret channel of communication opened up between the older kids and Christine, a channel that Kody was explicitly excluded from. We know the older boys have distanced themselves from Kody, but we often assume it's just because of Robin. What if it was actually about this? What if Logan, reviewing the details of Ysabel's case from afar, looked at the x-rays or heard the reports and realized that his father was essentially practicing medicine without a license? Picture the scene that likely took place off-camera. Kody is in Flagstaff, ranting about COVID protocols and demanding loyalty. Meanwhile, the phone rings in Christine's house. It's Logan. He's not calling to just say hello. He's calling with the authority of someone who knows what they are talking about. Sources and speculation point to the idea that Logan became the voice of reason that shattered Kody's echo chamber. While Kody was telling Ysabel that surgery was a cosmetic choice or something that could be put off, Logan was allegedly breaking down the hard facts for his mother. "Mom, if you wait, the damage could be permanent. The lungs could be compromised. The pain will become chronic." This is the medical clash that defines the end of the marriage. It wasn't just about a lack of intimacy, it was a battle between superstition and science. Kody's refusal to go to the surgery was the final straw, but the courage to book that appointment likely came from Logan validating Christine's instincts. Think about the timeline. For years, Christine hesitated. She tried to appease Kody. She did the exercises. She bought the devices. And then suddenly, her resolve hardened. She stopped asking for permission and started announcing plans. That shift in demeanor is characteristic of someone who has been backed up by an expert. Kody used COVID-19 as the ultimate shield. It was the perfect excuse. It allowed him to mask his neglect as protection. He wasn't refusing to support his daughter. He was protecting the family from the virus. It's a brilliant, twisted strategy. If you question him, you're being reckless. But this excuse falls apart when you apply medical logic, the kind of logic Logan possesses. Hospitals were the safest places to be because of their strict protocols. Traveling by car, taking precautions, getting the surgery done before the curve became inoperable. This was the scientific path. Kody's path was fear-based paralysis. We have to look at the New Jersey conversation. This was perhaps the most villainous moment in the show's history. Kody asks Ysabel, a terrified teenage girl in chronic pain, "Are you sure you can't go alone?" It wasn't just cruel, it was an abdication of fatherhood. But let's spin the theory here. Did Kody say that because he genuinely thought she could handle it, or did he say it because he knew he had lost the battle? He knew Christine was going to do it. He knew the science camp of the family, led by the influence of Logan and the older kids, had won. By refusing to go, he was trying to punish them for choosing the doctor over him. He was trying to prove a point. If you trust science more than you trust your father, then you don't get a father. But Logan's influence likely turned that punishment into a liberation. If the theories are true, Logan would have been the one to reassure Christine that Kody's presence wasn't necessary for the surgery to be a success. In fact, having Kody there, pacing, complaining, questioning the doctors, making it about himself, would have been a detriment. Logan, understanding the stress response and its effect on recovery, might have told Christine, "It's actually better if he doesn't come." You need a calm environment. You need medical professionals doing their job without interference. There is a fascinating dynamic here regarding education. Kody often speaks with unearned confidence. He acts as if he knows more than the experts. We saw this with the COVID rules, where he created protocols that were stricter and more nonsensical than the CDC guidelines. He loves to be the smartest guy in the room. But Logan is the smart guy in the room. He went to university. He got the degree. He studied the hard sciences. For Kody, that is intimidating. It represents a loss of control. If Logan looks at Ysabel's spine and says surgery is necessary, and Kody says, no, it's not, Kody loses that argument every single time in the eyes of the rest of the family. This is why the silence from the older boys on the show is so loud. They aren't just quiet, they are disengaged from Kody's narrative. We suspect that Logan's support for Ysabel was active, constant, and completely hidden from Kody's view. Imagine the text threads. Imagine the family group chat that Kody isn't in, the real Brown family chat. While Kody was sending typed-out lists of rules about wiping down mail, Logan was likely sending links to orthopedic journals or explaining the recovery process to Ysabel so she wouldn't be scared. The insider theory suggests that Logan's role was that of a shadow surrogate father. He couldn't be there physically due to his own life and restrictions, but he provided the intellectual and emotional security that Kody refused to give. He validated Ysabel's pain. Kody minimized it. Kody treated the surgery as a betrayal. Logan treated it as a medical necessity. This is the crux of the conflict. It's not just about a surgery. It's about the moment the Brown family stopped operating like a cult of personality revolving around Kody and started operating like rational individuals living in the real world. And let's talk about the bitter old housewife comment. Kody lashed out at Christine, calling her manipulative for pushing for this surgery. Why? Because she was listening to someone else. Narcissists spiral when their victims find a new authority figure. We believe that authority figure was the collective knowledge of her adult children, spearheaded by Logan. When Christine looked at Kody, she no longer saw a leader. She saw a man denying reality. And when she looked at her phone and saw messages from her son, the kinesiology student, she saw the truth. This surgery was the turning point. It was the moment science defeated superstition. But the battle wasn't easy. As we move deeper into this story, we need to analyze exactly how Logan might have dismantled Kody's arguments point by point. We have heard rumors of specific conversations, of ultimatums, and of the way the older siblings rallied to protect Ysabel from her father's negativity. Kody wanted to prove the surgery was a mistake. He wanted it to be a disaster so he could say, "I told you so." But he was fighting a war against modern medicine, and he was fighting a war against his own son's education. As we transition into the next part of this saga, we are going to look at the hospital visit itself. Kody was absent, but was he really? Or was his shadow hanging over the room? And more importantly, how did Logan and the other siblings fill that void? We have reason to believe that the digital support system set up by the older kids was far more effective than Kody's physical presence ever could have been. The medical clash was heating up, and while Kody sat in his mansion with Robin, obsessing over cardboard boxes and sanitized mail, Ysabel was walking into an operating room armed with the confidence that her brother and her mother had made the right choice. This is where the story gets even more intense. We are going to look at the speculative scene of the X-ray review and how one phone call might have changed the course of SisterWives history forever. Kody thought he was punishing them with his silence, but he was actually giving them the gift of clarity. We need to really dissect the qualifications here, because this is where the power dynamic in the Brown family completely shifts. For decades, Kody Brown has operated on a platform of unearned confidence. He is a man who believes that being the head of the household grants him infused knowledge on every subject, from construction to marriage counseling and, yes, to medicine. But then you have Logan. Logan isn't just the eldest son who got out, he is a scholar. He holds a degree in kinesiology and exercise science from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Let's be very clear about what that means. This isn't just learning how to lift weights. Kinesiology is the scientific study of human movement. It involves intense coursework in anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and motor control. Logan spent years studying exactly how the skeletal system supports the body, and more importantly, what happens when that system fails. So when Kody Brown looked at Ysabel's X-rays, he saw a scary picture that he wanted to wish away with positive thinking and prayer. But when Logan Brown looked at those same X-rays, he saw a biomechanical disaster. Our insiders suggest that there was a pivotal moment, a moment that cameras were never allowed to film, where Christine sent the latest imaging reports to Logan. The curve was severe, over 50 degrees. At that level of curvature, the spine begins to twist the ribcage, compressing the lungs and the heart. This is where the theory of the secret medical advisor comes into full play. We believe Logan took one look at that data and realized that his father's wait-and-see approach wasn't just negligent, it was life-threatening. There is a speculative but highly probable scene that played out over the phone. Kody was in Christine's ear saying, "The doctor is just trying to make money," or "We can fix this with exercises." That is the language of a man who fears what he doesn't understand. Then you have Logan on the other line. Logan likely explained the mechanics of the situation to his mother in undeniable terms. He would have explained that no amount of stretching can untwist a calcified spinal column that is crushing a lung. We believe Logan used the terrifying word that finally woke Christine up, paralysis. He likely told her, "Mom, if the curve progresses further, we are looking at nerve damage. We are looking at a life of disability. You cannot listen to Dad on this." This is the voice of reason that Kody could not compete with. Kody can argue with Christine. He can bully her. He can manipulate her emotions. But he cannot argue with anatomy. He cannot argue with a degree he doesn't have. Kody hates being corrected, especially by his own children, which is why this intervention had to happen in the shadows. If Kody knew Logan was the one pushing for the surgery, he would have viewed it as a direct mutiny. He would have made it a loyalty test. So Logan and Christine played it smart. They let science do the talking. As we move to the timeline of the hospital visit, the contrast between the two men in Ysabel's life becomes heartbreakingly stark. We all remember the scene. Ysabel in tears, packing her bags, preparing to fly to New Jersey for major invasive surgery in the middle of a global pandemic. And where was Kody? He was at Robin's house, officiating a wedding for a friend, or pacing around, worrying about exposure. He refused to go. He let his daughter walk into the fire alone. But while Kody created a void, the Brotherhood filled it. Exclusive theories suggest that during the trip to New Jersey, the family group chat, the one without Kody and Robin, was active 24/7. Logan, knowing the gravity of the surgery, was likely the quarterback of this digital support system. While Christine was navigating airports and hospital protocols, terrified and exhausted, Logan was likely the one breaking down the medical jargon for the rest of the siblings. When the doctors explained the tethering procedure or the recovery timeline, Christine didn't have to carry that mental load alone. She had a consultant on speed dial. Imagine the hospital room. Ysabel is prepped for surgery. The nurses are coming in and out. It's a terrifying environment. Kody isn't there to hold her hand. He isn't there to ask the doctors the tough questions. In fact, reports indicate Kody's communication during this time was sporadic and focused on his own grievances. But we believe Logan and the older brothers, Hunter, Garrison, Peyton, were constantly present via FaceTime and text. Logan specifically would have known what questions to ask. What is her oxygen saturation? How is her pain management? Has the anesthesia worn off yet? He wasn't just a brother, he was a remote patient advocate. There is a compelling theory that Logan instructed the siblings to create a wall of love around Ysabel to block out Kody's negativity. Think about it. If Kody had called Ysabel right before surgery, what would he have said? He would have probably asked if she was sure, or complained about the cost, or reminded her about the COVID risks, spiking her anxiety right before she went under anesthesia. Logan knows that stress impacts surgical outcomes. It is highly possible that he advised Christine and Ysabel to limit contact with Kody during the critical 48-hour window surrounding the operation. Focus on healing, don't focus on Dad. That was the prescription. And let's talk about the surgery itself. It was a massive success. The doctors straightened her spine, they added the hardware, and Ysabel grew several inches overnight. When she woke up, she was a new person. But for Kody, this success was a nightmare. Why? Because every inch Ysabel gained in height was an inch of credibility Kody lost. He had spent years saying surgery wasn't the answer. He had staked his reputation as a patriarch on the idea that he knew best. When the X-rays came back showing a straight spine, it was undeniable proof that he was wrong. Insiders speculate that when the post-op photos were sent to the family, Kody's reaction was muted. He didn't celebrate the miracle of modern science. He sulked. He was defeated by a surgeon he didn't trust and a decision he didn't authorize. Meanwhile, Logan was likely celebrating the victory of science. He understood the physiological relief Ysabel was feeling. He knew that her ribcage could finally expand fully, that her heart wasn't under pressure anymore. The relief the family felt wasn't just emotional, it was biological. And Logan was the only one who truly grasped the magnitude of that. There is also a darker layer to this medical clash. We have to ask, did Kody secretly hope for a complication? Not because he wanted Ysabel to be hurt, but because he wanted to be vindicated? It's a sickening thought, but consistent with his narcissistic patterns. If something had gone wrong, Kody could have said, "I told you it was too risky. I told you we should have waited." But nothing went wrong. The science worked. The preparation worked. The Logan plan worked. This drove Kody deeper into his paranoia. He couldn't attack the results, so he attacked the process. He complained about the travel. He complained about the time Christine was away. He complained about the lack of loyalty. But while Kody was complaining, Logan was proving a point that would resonate through the rest of the seasons. Education destroys control. Kody relies on his wives and children being ignorant so he can lead them. He relies on them trusting his gut over established facts. But his children are growing up. They are getting degrees. They are seeing the world. Logan represents the new generation of brown men. Men who listen to doctors. Men who support women. Men who don't need to be the center of attention to be powerful. The hospital visit was the crucible. It was the moment Christine realized she could do it alone. But she wasn't really alone, was she? She had the spirit of her children supporting her, and she had the intellectual backing of her eldest son. Kody's absence backfired spectacularly. He thought that by withdrawing his presence, the surgery would be a traumatic, lonely failure. Instead, it became a girl's trip of liberation. It became the moment Ysabel reclaimed her body and Christine reclaimed her autonomy. And the architect of that confidence, the silent partner in that decision, was the kinesiology student who knew that a curved spine doesn't fix itself just because a man commands it to. We also have to consider the financial aspect, which is often tied to the medical field. Surgery is expensive. The co-pays, the travel, the out-of-network costs. Kody constantly worries about money, but reports suggest the older kids, who are financially independent and successful, were ready to step in if needed. Logan, who has built a stable, private life with a real career, represents financial stability that doesn't rely on a reality TV show. This is another reason Kody fears him. Logan doesn't need Kody's money, and he doesn't need Kody's permission. If Christine needed help understanding the medical bills or the insurance jargon, again, Logan is the one with the head on his shoulders to figure it out. Kody gets overwhelmed by paperwork. Logan gets it done. As Ysabel lay in that hospital bed, recovering, gaining strength, she was physically shedding the burden of her father's control. The crooked spine was a metaphor for the twisted dynamic of the family, and the surgery straightened them both out. Kody's refusal to participate meant he had no claim to the victory. He couldn't take credit for her height. He couldn't take credit for her pain relief. He was left in Flagstaff with his boxes and his bitterness, while the science team took the win. But the war wasn't over yet. The surgery was just a battle. The aftermath, the return home, the recovery process, and the inevitable confrontation between the man of science and the man of ego was just beginning. When Christine and Ysabel returned to Flagstaff, the dynamic had permanently changed. They had proof that life was better without Kody's interference, and Kody, sensing this shift, began to spiral even further. He couldn't argue with the straight spine, so he had to find a new enemy. And that enemy became the disloyalty of his children, who dared to listen to doctors instead of him. In the next part of this deep dive, we will explore the aftermath. We will look at how Ysabel's new posture changed her confidence, how Christine used this victory to finally leave, and how Kody is now terrified to speak about medical issues in front of Logan. We will also discuss the final verdict. Did Logan's silent war effectively end the plural marriage by proving that Kody was not only useless, but actively harmful? Science doesn't lie, and neither do the results. The aftermath of Ysabel's surgery wasn't just a recovery period. It was the total demolition of Kody Brown's ego. When Ysabel returned to Flagstaff, she didn't just come back with a straight spine, she came back taller. And in the world of a narcissist, physical stature matters. There is a delicious irony that insiders have pointed out. By fixing her spine, Ysabel literally grew taller than many of the people who tried to hold her back. When she stood next to Kody for the first time post-surgery, the dynamic was visually jarring. She was upright, confident, and pain-free, while Kody seemed to shrink. He was no longer the tall, imposing patriarch protecting his flock. He was the small, bitter man who had been proven wrong by a teenager and her mother. We have to look at the undeniable data that Logan's perspective provided. The theory holds that while Kody was expecting a grueling, botched recovery, something he could point to and say, "See, I told you it was a bad idea." Ysabel was actually thriving. Why? Because the science of kinesiology and modern orthopedics works. The insider reports suggest that Logan continued to monitor her rehab from a distance. He likely emphasized the importance of physical therapy, muscle activation, and rest, concepts Kody has historically ignored in favor of his own chaotic energy. Kody's version of help is frantic and emotional. Logan's version of help is calculated and physiological. There is a whispered rumor circulating in the deep fan forums that Kody is now genuinely afraid to discuss medical topics when Logan is in the room or on the phone. Think about it. Kody loves to lecture. He loves to be the professor. But how can you lecture a man who has actually done the reading? If Kody tries to bring up his anti-doctor rhetoric or his conspiracy theories about the medical industry, Logan doesn't even have to argue. He just has to exist. His degree is a silent shield that protects the rest of the family from Kody's nonsense. We believe this is a major factor in why Kody has drifted so far from the older boys. It's not just about Robin, it's about the fact that he can no longer dominate the intellectual space of the conversation. The medical clash ended in a decisive victory for the science team. Ysabel's scar is a badge of honor, a symbol of the battle she won. But for Kody, that scar is a reminder of his failure. Every time he sees it, he is reminded that he refused to go, and they went anyway. He is reminded that he said it wasn't necessary, and the X-rays proved it was critical. This is why we saw Kody become so aggressive and angry in the subsequent seasons. He lost control of the bodies of his family members. He could no longer dictate who got surgery, who traveled, or who listened to which expert. The spell was broken. And let's connect the dots to the divorce. This surgery was the dress rehearsal for Christine leaving the marriage. Before New Jersey, Christine might have believed the lie that she couldn't survive without Kody's leadership. She might have thought the world was too scary to navigate alone, but then she packed her bags. She flew across the country during a pandemic. She managed a major medical crisis. She cared for her daughter, and she brought her home safely. And she did it all while Kody sat on a couch. When she got back, she realized the truth that Logan had likely known for years. Kody wasn't the captain of the ship. He was the anchor dragging them down. The Logan theory suggests that the eldest son's influence was the catalyst for this realization. By empowering his mother with facts, by validating her instincts with science, he gave her the permission she needed to stop being a victim. It wasn't about telling her to leave, it was about showing her that she was competent. Science empowers people. Superstition keeps them afraid. Kody traded in fear. Fear of the virus, fear of the surgery, fear of the world. Logan traded in knowledge. And in the end, knowledge won. We also have to consider the long-term impact on the other children. Truly, Solomon, Ariella, they are watching this. They are seeing that Ysabel got the care she needed because she defied her father. This sets a dangerous precedent for Kody. His authority is eroding with every successful medical outcome that happens without his permission. The voice of reason has spread. It started with Logan, but now we see it in Aspen, in Hunter, in Payton. They are a united front of reality-based thinking against a father living in a fantasy world. There is a particularly biting piece of speculation regarding the insurance and the bills. Kody constantly complained about the financial burden, but look at Ysabel now. She is healthy. She is moving on with her life. She is going to school. The return on investment for that surgery was infinite. Kody, with his short-sighted view, only saw the cost. Logan, with his understanding of health span versus lifespan, saw the value. He knew that fixing the issue now would save them hundreds of thousands of dollars in chronic pain management down the road. Once again, the student schooled the master. As we wrap up this untold story of the medical war in Flagstaff, we are left with a picture of a family divided not just by geography, but by philosophy. On one side, you have Kody and Robin isolated in their mansion, surrounded by boxes, fearful of the outside world, distrusting of doctors, and miserable. On the other side, you have Christine and her children, traveling, embracing modern medicine, fixing their broken bones, and living their lives to the fullest. The contrast could not be sharper. Ysabel's straight spine is the ultimate middle finger to Kody's control. It stands as a monument to the moment Christine chose her cub over her lion. But the invisible architect of that monument was Logan. He didn't need to be on camera. He didn't need a confessional. He just needed to be a big brother who paid attention in anatomy class. He proved that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is simply tell your parents that they are wrong and show them the data to prove it. So, the next time you rewatch those painful episodes where Ysabel is crying and Kody is cold, remember the shadow war. Remember that while Kody was trying to break their spirits, someone else was building their resolve. The medical clash was the defining moment of the series, the moment the House of Cards collapsed under the weight of hard, cold medical facts. Kody Brown fought the science, and the science won. Now I want to turn this over to you, the jury. We have laid out the evidence. We have looked at the timeline, the degrees, and the results. What do you think really happened behind the scenes? Do you believe the theory that Logan was the secret force pushing Christine to defy Kody? Do you think Kody's refusal to go was truly about COVID, or was it a power play that backfired? And does Ysabel's height difference now symbolize Kody's shrinking influence? This is the conversation that TLC doesn't want us to have, but we are having it right here. If you think Logan is the unsung hero of this family, type Team Science in the comments below. If you think Kody has any justification for his behavior, let us know why. We want to hear all sides, even the controversial ones. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden layers of Sister Wives. We are hacking the narrative and bringing you the truth that the edit tries to hide. Make sure you are subscribed and have that notification bell turned on, because our next investigation is going to expose the financial records that explain exactly where the family money went. You do not want to miss that. Until then, trust the science, question the narrative, and always look for the truth behind the reality. Thanks for watching.